Welcome to the RotoWire Prospect Podcast. I'm Clay Link here with RotoWire.com's lead prospect analyst, James Anderson. Always great to be talking with you, James. It is first full week of the Major League Baseball season. The Reds are 5-1 somehow. It's amazing. Jonathan India's been kind of like just a spark plug for this team, James. I'm loving it. How are you on this Wednesday?
Doing great, man. Day baseball, watching Brandon Woodruff and Kyle Hendricks go at it, so I definitely can't complain.
Nice. Yeah, the Reds just wrapped up an 11-4 win. Amir Garrett gave up another homer, which is a little troubling, but India making plays in the field at the dish. He's looked really good, and I picked him up in NL only. My final draft, I got one share of Jonathan India, so it's been pretty fun. He looks like he belongs. Suarez at short, I guess they're just committed to doing it. He was not there today. Seemed like Luis Castillo and his follow-up to opening day was like, yeah, I'd like a real shortstop back there today, even though Kyle Farmer's pushing it as far as a real shortstop goes too. But it looks like India, though, I don't think there's any way they could get this guy out of the lineup at this point.
Well, I mean, it's been less than a week, so he might. We'll see where he's at in a month.
I'm just not used to this, James. Seems like the Reds always get off to a bad start. I'm just my head's in the clouds a little bit.
Well, just pace yourself, man. It's going to be a long season.
I know. And I really don't think the Reds are going to be that good. They've been at home so far, but it is good to get off to a hot start. It seems like every year for the past half decade or so, they go like 1-6 to kick things off. But by the way, I wanted to thank you for making us grab Omar Narvaez. So he had another homer last night.
Yeah, he's been the Brewers' best hitter so far this year.
That doesn't sound great for them as a team, but I'm glad we went the cheap route, and our catcher Narvaez off to a good start in the main event. How are you doing in the rest of your leagues?
I mean, I'm doing awesome in some, terrible in others. It's just I don't even think it's worth really discussing at this point.
That's probably true. I try not to look at the standings myself, and I probably, I've told myself I'm going to just grind every league every week, and then, no matter where I'm at in the standings, because they really don't take shape for about a half a year. But I do think, certain leagues I'm off to a pretty bad start. Certain leagues decent, but always trying to improve. Were you trying to add Yermin Mercedes this weekend?
No. I might have had like a tiny bid for him in some places where I knew I wasn't going to get him, but just threw like a buck at him or something. But I added both Julian Merriweather and Cesar Valdez and TGFBI because I was basically down to 0 closers / Adam Ottavino. So I absolutely needed the saves and did not want to fall behind in the overall there. So that was kind of the main league where I actually added someone noteworthy. Most of my other leagues were kind of like our main event, adding guys like Davinsky and Evan Longoria and just kind of depth pieces.
By the way, kind of buried the lead here. We have a new hip hop segment at the end of the show, James. Whose idea was this?
Oh man, shoot! I should have looked that up before the show.
We'll give them proper credit in time, but it's a great idea.
And yeah, it was it was a great idea. We're just gonna do kind of a weekly walk-up track nomination from both of us, as if we were big leaguers and we needed a song to walk up to. We'll each just be kind of contributing one of those per week. So
it's kind of just a new excuse to make a new playlist.
Right. Yeah. I mean, this is going to be a playlist that if we do it right, it'll get you pretty fired up. So looking forward to kicking that off at the end of the show.
Yeah, weekly walk-up tracks. I'm excited for that. I'm glad we have a new thing going, and The playlists that we've made so far have been pretty epic. So I'm excited to create a new one that'll be on Spotify. I was with you. I kind of had some Your Mean, mostly with backup bids, and did not end up rostering him anywhere. But I got Julian Merriweather in my solo main. It took about 336, I think. Let me look that up. But I went pretty heavily after him because my solo main event, I did not take a closer until round 12, I don't think. But now I have Kimbrel, Hector Neris, and Julian Merriweather. So I think I've put myself in a pretty good spot in saves. And I feel pretty good about Merriweather being the guy now. I mean, maybe it's Romano here and there, but I think we can trust what they've shown us so far, at least as far as Merriweather being the primary guy. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think the whole everyone kind of discussing what Merriweather was going for the most part, it was just kind of a huge waste of time because I think I'm sure there are some people that bid on Merriweather and didn't really know what they were doing, but for the most part, if you knew what you're doing, that he is extremely risky from a health standpoint and a durability standpoint, and he could totally get hurt this week and never pitch again this season, but he's also extremely talented and has the stuff to be like a top 5 closer at the end of the year. So it was absolutely just a risk and hopefully a calculated risk by those who bid on him. And if you're like in my shoes in TGFBI where you basically didn't have a closer due to injuries and poor performance, then taking that calculated risk, I think, makes a ton of sense. If you're in a different situation with a different team and a different roster, maybe bidding anything more than like $50 on him wouldn't have made sense. So I just think, everyone was just getting worked up over the prices he was going for and pointing out that he's risky and everything. And it's just like, yeah, of course he's risky. I think everyone that bid on him knows the risk that they're buying into there.
Yeah, the stuff is off the charts, and I was, putting a bet on the stuff, and Jason Collette had him in labor and had him active, and just that was painful. But credit to him being on Merriweather from the jump, and should have listened to Jason. But yeah, it was kind of funny in one league, 12-team Tout Wars, I got Merriweather for 89. And that was a points league where, I don't need saves to compete in a standings category, and I don't need standings points, but I still thought Merriweather was a worthwhile add there because you do get points for saves. But in the 15-team main, I did shell out 361 is what it was. And the runner-up was 335 in the main event, my solo main for Merriweather. I'm looking at Vlad Sedler saying I'm the Fab Whisperer now. You're not Fab Whispering when you're shelling out 361. I get it, but it was good to kind of get the slight edge there because, yeah, I do feel good about him on that team and just the stuff, the potential with him. But yeah, I'd also spent big on Emilio Pagan, and that's just the rocky terrain that is navigating the saves picture right now.
Yeah, I mean that's absolutely right.
Sorry to see Davinsky last night get blow the save chance.
Yeah, I mean that was a cheap ad, and we weren't starting him. I mean, I think I have Davinsky in 2 leagues and didn't start him in either league this week. So
yeah, that was, I think, a good low cost spec for us in the main, but that's just the closer picture is so hard to figure out. Also, I was pretty mad about Andrew Vaughn sitting against a righty. He was out today too. They're playing Billy Hamilton. What are you doing with Andrew Vaughn right now? Are you starting to panic a little in mixed leagues?
No, I mean, not panic. I'm just I hate Tony La Russa. The last time he was in baseball, Billy Hamilton might have been an everyday player, but I mean, that's kind of one of those situations where if you're Rick Hahn, you really screwed up by giving your manager a player that he wants to play over your top prospect. And I mean, obviously it's not like Billy's going to play well and cut into Vaughn's at bats, like throughout the season, but it's just going to be a really annoying next couple weeks till La Russa realizes what he's doing. I mean, it's absurd. Like this is a guy that's barely hanging on to an active roster, and he's getting played over one of the best hitting prospects in the game. So it's really annoying. There's nothing you can do in fantasy. I mean, what are you going to do? Like, you're not dropping Andrew Vaughn. I mean, if you can bench him in a shallower league and play someone who's playing every day until Vaughn's playing every day, I think you can go that route. But other than that, I don't really think there's anything you can do.
Do you think it's that Vaughn's just not a capable left fielder? Like, it just baffles me. I see this team and it's frustrating. Plus, like, you start the clock on a guy like that and he's just not even playing.
He's not a left fielder. I mean, he's a better left fielder than Suarez is a shortstop. So, I mean, it's not. Yeah. This isn't an unprecedented situation to play offense over defense. But, I mean, he's a first baseman / designated hitter who's being asked to play left field. But at the end of the day, he's still more valuable than Billy Hamilton is, even though Billy Hamilton's a way better defender out there. I mean, you just having just a zero in your lineup in the American League is not really sustainable, especially when you have your best hitter on the shelf for 4 months. So it's annoying. It's going to work itself out. It's just going to take a couple weeks, I think.
And the Yermin Mercedes breakout kind of throws a wrinkle in there for Vaughn, because that does force him to left mostly. And it's not great. I do think Yermin, as great as this start has been, I do think it's kind of, and I think because we both said we mostly had spec, backup bids on him, we're not expecting this to continue at anything close to this level. I think that goes without saying. But Yermin, I do have to give him credit. And he's thrown a wrench in our plans with Andrew Vaughn, who I know I have in a lot of places. You do too. And actually in labor, James, AL labor, picked up Chris Rodriguez, and I spent 7 on him without a backup bid. I was pretty shocked that nobody else was on Chris Rodriguez in an ALs, but 7, I'll take it. What have you seen from Chris Rodriguez so far?
He's just really nasty, and they're using him in a multi-inning role, and the strike throwing is really probably the only thing that he needs to work on. But I mean, the stuff is just untouchable, basically. I mean, he's made some really good hitters look really, really bad through 2 appearances. So I think he's a guy that's going to probably vulture some wins this year. Might end up with 5, 6, 7 saves or something like that, just by virtue of being the guy that maybe gets the final 6, 7 outs of a game. And I think that this role makes a lot of sense for him this year for this team, where he was already on the 40-man roster and he was already one of their best pitchers, but he wasn't going to be able to log much more than 100 innings this year. So they're just trying to get as much value out of him as they can while he's healthy. And I think he can absolutely give them 100, 110 innings in relief. And then next year they can have him slotted in kind of to the rotation heading into spring training. And he'll be able to get up to 140, 150 in 2022. So at first I was kind of skeptical of what they were doing, but now that it's kind of clear that he is a multi-inning guy for them out of the pen, it makes a lot more sense, and he's just been really fun to watch. Yeah,
I was really happy to get him, especially in a league like that has an innings minimum for the season at 950. If you're in a league like that with, that's deep and you're not really sure, I love a guy like that who could push 100 innings this season if he's healthy, which is a big question with Chris Rodriguez. But I love what I've seen from him. That was that like a 2-seam fastball, that 2-seam run back over the plate. Just disgusting stuff from Chris Rodriguez. And I know you, James, have said, or at least I think you said it on our XM show last week. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I think you said you don't really expect him to enter that closer mix, and you expect him to get stretched back out next year. But Raisel Iglesias is suddenly a little shaky, so maybe there's an outside chance Chris Rodriguez Could be like a multi-inning, early Josh Hader-ish type of role. But I want to ask you about another long man prospect breaking in. But first, a word from Underdog Fantasy. Football season approaches, and you've got to check out these new best ball leagues on Underdog. Best ball is the ultimate test of your live draft skills since there's no in-season management. That's right. Draft your team, and Underdog automatically credits you with your best performing players every week. You don't need to play the waiver wire or worry about trades. It's just the draft. Who doesn't love drafting? In Underdog Best Ball, you can draft as many times as you want because you don't have to do any roster management, saving you loads of time. Underdog's Best Ball leagues are drafting right now, starting at just $3. Once the season starts, Underdog also has daily fantasy and an all-new pick'em game. Go download the Underdog app now to get in on some best ball before the season starts. Enter promo code ROTOWIRE with your first deposit, and Underdog will honor a money-back guarantee during your first month. Love Underdog or get your money back with promo code ROTOWIRE. Search Underdog in the App Store and enter promo code ROTOWIRE. The other guy in the bullpen who's making some waves, Ryan Weathers. Were you a little surprised to see him on that opening day roster, James?
No, I was hoping he would win the fifth starter spot, but I mean, just given their injuries to that bullpen, I mean, he's obviously one of their 7 or 8 best pitchers already, so they're obviously going for it. So I was not surprised, just given the amount of injuries they have in the pen. He's one of my favorite pitchers to watch right now. Only made the one appearance back on April 4th, but cruised through 3 innings, got the save. I think he's kind of a stash candidate in redraft leagues right now. I mean, obviously you can plug him into your lineup if you just need a healthy pitcher that can get you some Ks and maybe help the ratios a little bit. But I think, Adrian Morion's not going to stay healthy, or, I mean, he's either going to get hurt or he's going to run out of innings at some point. And, I mean, they've got other pitchers that could get hurt in that rotation. I kind of think Weathers is basically staying nominally stretched out in his bullpen role and would be the next man up if they need to add someone to that rotation. So I think he can give you a little bit of value in the short term in this long relief role, but I also think he's a guy that could make, maybe he can make 8 to 12 starts this year at some point, and I think he could be pretty effective in that type of role.
As you were saying that, I just went and picked up Ryan Weathers in a league. I'm only in one first come first serve league, but they're kind of fun. Just that immediate gratification of adding a player. I dropped JB Bukowskis, who had a decent outing but just wasn't allowed to really cut it loose. And yeah, Ryan Weathers, pretty interesting here. And it seems like he's freely available. Maybe you and I in the leagues in the main, maybe we'll have to think about that, because those guys are going to be valuable this season, and maybe there's a chance for a more fantasy-friendly role on the horizon for Ryan Weathers. Now, James, when we were getting set for our XM show last week, we saw this note, and I could not say this guy's name for some reason. Geraldo Perdomo. I was calling him Geralmo. I don't know. I could not get it right, but Geraldo Perdomo. First week of action for him. Any thoughts on what we've seen on the field so far for Geraldo Perdomo?
Well, he was kind of an emergency situation. I really don't think the Diamondbacks had any real interest in starting his clock this early, but it seems like, I'd be pretty worried. I mean, if you're like an NL only or something and have been relying on Nick Ahmed, or we're hoping to just get some, 155 games out of him this year, his knee situation it seems pretty bad. Like it's kind of a pain management type of thing that I think might end up requiring surgery at some point. Whenever you have the PRP injection and then also it just doesn't really fix the problem, and then you miss time after that, it's a pretty bad sign. So I think, they were probably eyeing maybe a June, July, August type of debut for Perdomo. But, after Ahmed, he's definitely the best defensive shortstop they have in the organization. And he was already on the 40-man, so it made sense to just kind of throw him in there and just sort of see what happens and hope that Ahmed could be back in about a week or 10 to 15 days. I don't think anyone should be judging Perdomo based on what he's doing in the majors right now. This is just it's not like a normal type of prospect debut where he's been biding his time and earning the call up. He's just kind of thrown in there out of necessity. And so, I think he's looked fine in the field. He hasn't struck out at a crazy clip, but he could be up for like a month and he might not hit a home run. And that wouldn't be cause for concern, just given the profile. He's a hit over power guy who I used to think was going to get to like 25 homer power eventually, but I'm not quite as sold on that anymore. It sort of seems like it's really just not something he's trying to do up there. He does work the count exceptionally well. He's always just walked at a crazy high clip and struck out. He's never struck out more than 18% of the time. So, you love the plate skills. He's a above average runner. So if he's working high OBPs, he could chip in some steals, but I don't think he's going to be a 20 steal guy. He would have to be getting on base a ton to be a 20 steal guy. So it's definitely a real life over fantasy type of profile, but it's still pretty exciting to just sort of see him getting his feet wet.
I got to say too, that other middle infield position for Arizona is looking real shaky with Josh Rojas's early performance. And that just notable because maybe it opens things up, more possibilities for Perdomo. I was buying in on the Josh Rojas spring, I have to admit. And it is early, but 1 for 17, 217 OPS through his first 5 games. And just he really hasn't ever hit at the big league level. So, Josh Rojas, those spec pickups there, not looking so hot. And maybe Perdomo can, if things do work out and things aren't as ominous as they seem with Nick Ahmed's knee right now, maybe Perdomo could shift over to second as well.
Well, I think they would want, they're going to get a lot more value this year out of just making sure what they have in Josh Rojas than developing Perdomo at the big league level. The last thing you want is to jerk a guy like Rojas around after a few weeks, and then you still don't really know what you have in him. You'd much rather give him 3 months, because the Diamondbacks aren't trying to compete this year anyway, even if they might be saying something different publicly. You want to just give him a full 3 to 4 months, really just sort of give him as much of a chance as you can, and then if it just doesn't work out, then you can move on from him. But Perdomo, he's not up there to just play second base. He's up there just to play shortstop, and then once Ahmed's back, maybe if Perdomo was just really surprising us with what he was doing at the dish and really looked ready, maybe then you leave him up. But I think they would much rather leave a struggling Josh Rojas at second base than a better than expected Perdomo at second base once Ahmed's back.
Yeah, that's probably the right call. I'm a little nervous about this Josh Rojas start, but they have kind of jerked him around in prior seasons, and it is who is this guy? We do need more of a sample to know exactly who Josh Rojas is. But parts of 3 seasons now, he's got a career 194, 285, 255 line, Josh Rojas. But I was liking what I was seeing in the spring.
If you drafted him, it's terrible process if you drafted him and you're worried after 5 games.
I know.
If you were going to be worried after 5 games, you shouldn't have touched him in drafts.
I know it's a bad process on my part. I was just looking for any kind of middle infielder, with some perceived upside. But plus, I appeal to authority with Alex Chamberlain. But no, I'm just making the case that, they haven't really seemed to be in love with Josh Rojas in the past, giving him like regular time.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think it'd be more likely for them to give like Andy Young or Josh Van Meter or Wyatt Matheson or someone like that the shot over Perdomo, because like playing Perdomo at second base just kind of defeats the purpose of playing Perdomo, really.
I gotcha. Like, maybe, Ahmed's a really good defender too at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but like basically what I'm saying is like Perdomo's up only because of his glove right now. Like that's like if you move him over to second, I mean they've got guys on the 40 man that they like. Josh Rojas isn't the only guy on the 40 man that they don't know necessarily what he's bringing to the table. Like for whatever reason, Wyatt Matheson's on their 40 man, Andy Young's on their 40 man, I believe. So I think they would probably just use this season to kind of give all those guys a little bit of a look, even if they do decide that Rojas just isn't going to cut it. I mean, I don't know. I think he could very easily, like a week from today, we could be talking about how Josh Rojas has like a couple homers and a couple steals.
I fully admit it was bad process on my part, but I will follow Alex Chamberlain into like a black hole. I'll follow him onto the battlefield. I guess maybe I should have held on to Ha-Seong Kim and not started Rojas in that middle spot, because now it looks like Kim's going to be playing for a while. I know the Padres are trying to be optimistic on Fernando Tatis Jr., but I would be shocked if it only ends up being 10 days for him. By the way, James, when we were talking about Yermin Mercedes, Julian Merriweather, and the like, big names in last weekend's Fab, I forgot to mention Akil Baddoo. I think he had like a triple today and another run scored. He had that big walk-off hit yesterday. Are you buying in on Akil Baddoo?
Well, basically, like I think the key here is just nobody knows. Like, I don't know. The Tigers don't know. Like, this could be legit. It could just be a total fluke hot start that he ends the month of April with like a 200 batting average and 40% K rate. Like nobody knows right now. And obviously in fantasy, even if we're talking like a 12 team home league where like half the people are asleep at the wheel, if you're interested in Akil Baddoo, you have to add him right now and just sort of see how it plays out. If you told me before spring training that Akil Baddoo was going to be one of the talks of the majors, I would have said you're absolutely insane. And I think every team in the majors, including the Tigers, would have said you're insane. But we also just don't know how good Akil Baddoo is right now, because it's been so long since he played against pitching where we were keeping stats and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's possible for any player his age to have massively improved over an 18-month span, and us to just have no clue that improvement happened. I don't necessarily know exactly what Akil Baddoo's been up to for the past 18 months. He could have just gone with the Randy Arozarena chicken and rice diet and 200 push-ups a day and been working out like crazy and just gotten a ton better. We don't know. So I think like if you want to try to find out whether it's legit, you have to add him now. And you might have already missed that window to add him, but I mean, I'm not adding him anywhere where it requires a big fab bid or anything like that. I think you just kind of have to understand that we're not going to know how legit this is until 3, 4, 5 weeks after he's been scooped up in every single league. So 18 months ago, he was not even close to being ready to hit big league pitching. And that's why he was left unprotected by the Twins. And that's why the Tigers were able to easily scoop him up in the Rule 5 draft. But there's a chance that he's just way better than that now.
Yeah, it's just so we don't have any way to gauge that progress over the past year and a half. But early returns are looking great. Let me throw this either or at you. Akil Baddoo or Kyle Isbell? Who would you rather have the rest of the way?
Isbell.
Isbell. Does look like he's pretty firmly entrenched in a platoon right now, but that's not the worst thing. You believe in the bat a little more?
Well, I think it's, I mean, again, like I had one guy ranked well inside the top 100 and one guy ranked outside the top 200 less than a week ago. Yeah. And so I'm not gonna flip that based on 5 games.
Yeah. You're more level-headed than me, James. But no, I think that's right. I mean, it is easy to overreact, and you do have to act on these type of things if you want to potentially go on the ride. But I do think that not what we've seen is not enough to bump Baddoo over a guy like Isbell. Plus, Isbell off to a nice start himself.
Well, I was going to add, like, I think I'm kind of almost proud of the bids that didn't hit on Isbell in, I think my first main event I did with Todd, and then the main I did with you. We made bids on Isbell in both those leagues, and they were kind of calculated, not going overboard type of bids that we sort of expected wouldn't win out. And I think sometimes those are the best bids when you maybe don't get a guy. You knew a guy would have maybe helped your team, but you just didn't quite pay what it was going to take to get the guy. Like I sometimes almost feel better about those bids than the bids that do hit.
Yeah, I hear you, man. I've heard Fred Zinke on his Tuesday pod with Jeff here at RotoWire mention that he kind of aims to do it's kind of, you want to win certain guys, but in his mind, he's always kind of aiming to be like the runner up, and then occasionally he will be the winner. But I do think it's better to temper your bids earlier in the season. I did bid big on Merriweather, but for the most part in the rest of my leagues, I was pretty reined in on the budget and the spending this week. I did get Isbell, I think, in one league, but I drafted him in my solo main. How about that? Pat on the back. Good start, at least getting a steal in a few multi-hit games, so that's been nice. I don't have any exposure to Baddoo though, but maybe that'll cost me. But
you can't look at it like, oh man, if I don't get Baddoo,
FOMO.
I'm gonna like that. There's just so many players out there. Like the odds are Baddoo's gonna end up being like a break even. Like he's not gonna be worth much when we look back at earned auction values, because he's gonna have like two or three great weeks and 3 or 4 terrible weeks, and you're gonna have him in your lineup for all of them, and it's gonna kind of cancel each other out. That's like the most likely outcome with him. I mean, he could end up being a huge boon for people that got him on the cheap, but the odds of that are not likely in my opinion, and you can't be worried about like missing out on like the Akil Baddoo season. I mean, it's just think about like Kyle Lewis's start last year, and it was a really fun ride in April, and then he took all that production back from you if you left him in your lineup for the next 2 months. So
same with Aristides Aquino, who had a homer today, by the way. But no, I totally agree. I don't have a lot of FOMO when it comes to Akil Baddoo, but and actually I did grab. I think the only place where I actually added Isbell was in the stake league, and that was mostly to get a guy like Taylor Trammell out of there, just because I felt like Trammell opened up a little bit of downside with his plate skills. So I just believed a little bit more in Isbell's plate skills and the fact that Matheny's backing him, and they seem to be committed to this guy as the primary guy out and right. A real quick note before we start to wrap up the show today. Baseball has always been America's pastime, but a close second is horse racing, and we've got the best way to get in on the action. Stable Duel brings a new way to play the races against your friends. Similar to what we know in fantasy football and fantasy baseball, you select your team or your stable of horses and compete against other stables for big money prizes. Watch your stable move up the leaderboard as your horses accumulate points based on where they finish the race. The app is free to download, and they offer free games so you can learn how to play at zero risk. Don't know anything about horse racing? Don't worry. The app has all you need to know with free data on each horse's record, as well as a risk number, a speed number, and a value number for your best selections. This is the first game of its kind in horse racing, and you don't want to miss out. Download the Stable Duel app now and get in the game. Play, race, win with Stable Duel. James, you were kind enough to throw together an outline today, and I'm seeing Zach McKinstry on the list, a guy that we've kind of mentioned in passing, but it feels like we've never really put a spotlight on Zach McKinstry. How good is this guy?
Well, McKinstry is like a classic guy where I'm sure I've said multiple times on podcasts or radio, like this guy would be awesome if he was somewhere where he could play every day. It's just like it looked kind of coming into the year and just kind of taking like a 3 or 4 year view of the Dodgers organizational chart. It's just kind of like, how is this guy ever going to play more than 2 or 3 times a week? And so far he's just kind of forced his way in there, and that's not all that surprising to me. I mean, it helps that I think they've had a couple guys banged up, and that's allowed him to get in there. But I mean, the guy can just flat out hit, and he's a really good defender at multiple spots. And I mean, he might just sort of force the Dodgers' hand, and it's kind of annoying because like they have so many good players and only so many spots. A guy like Chris Taylor or a guy like Edwin Rios could just kind of get the short end of the stick this year. And I mean, I think McKinstry probably just fails to get enough plate appearances to really move the needle in like, especially 12-team leagues, but maybe even 15-team leagues. Like, I doubt he finishes with more than like 350, 400 plate appearances this year, even if he's playing really well. But he's just a good hitter. Like, he's not. This is not a fluky situation. He's a good ball player on both sides of the ball, and it's going to be interesting to sort of see how that whole playing time situation shakes out, because they have just an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, that team is truly absurd. It's like an all-star team. And I like a guy like Edwin Rios too, but it's just there's no room for a guy like that. And it feels like that's going to be the case with McKinstry and maybe a guy that ends up moving around. And when you got a guy like Chris Taylor, who's kind of already in that mold, it's hard for me to see a path. But the skills do seem legitimate with Zach McKinstry. So good for him. That Dodgers team just seems like it's going to be impossible to take down for any team in the major leagues this year. But we'll see. I mean, they are down Tony Gonsolin, and the injuries will start to add up. But it seems like they just have so much depth that it just never ends, never stops.
I did want to take I'm surprised we haven't taken like a bunch of victory laps already on the show. It's victory lap week after all, but I am just. Well, few things made me happier this first week than watching Dustin May get a bunch of Ks in his first start, because I've been really annoyed at the analysis about how he's just not going to miss a ton of bats because of what he did as a 21 and 22-year-old in the majors as a starting pitcher. So I'm all about the Dustin May strikeout machine continuing all season long.
Yeah, because his stuff is great, but it just hadn't really translated yet. But he was still so young, and it did just seem like a matter of time before he really mastered the craft. And it is pretty crazy what they've got cooking there. But hey, the Reds have the exact same record at 5-1. So,
well, I mean, it's going to be a fascinating NLCS. To just
let's just jump ahead. Let's just jump ahead to the NLCS.
All the Dodgers pitching and experience versus all the Reds just mashing up and down the lineup. Like the upstart Red, it's going to be a clash of styles, and I'm really looking forward to it.
You say that tongue in cheek, but we'll see, James. No, I had a guy mention to me on Twitter that Antone, he pointed out that he didn't pitch today in an 11-0 game. That is a little scary. I wonder if Antone's more injured than we thought. But I think like him and Dobnak and, you mentioned Ryan Weathers as a stash. Maybe Logan Gilbert, too, with Paxton leaving. I hated to see that after 20-some pitches Paxton left. But I do think, the Logan Gilbert train will be coming soon.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see sort of how they promote Kelenic and Gilbert, whether they do it on the same day or whether they kind of have it like 5-6 days apart to kind of make it seem more organic or what they're going to do there. But yeah, I mean, I was almost as surprised watching James Paxton leave that start as I was watching Josh Donaldson pull up limping on his first hit of the year. But it's not going to change their developmental plan for Gilbert. He's still going to be waiting until after April 16th, which is, I mean, normally I would say it's like insane to play those games with a pitcher, but when you probably aren't getting more than like 115, 125 innings out of a guy anyways, I guess you might as well wait. But it is just really in poor taste by Seattle what they're doing.
Yeah, I guess it gives them a little cover too that they were already going 6-man, and so they don't necessarily have to force a guy up. But yeah, I hear you. That is, so April 16th is the earliest possible date. I know usually you do an article where you try to guess at how these teams will manipulate service time. A lot going on and not really on the table this year, but you did the math, and April 16th is the earliest possible date.
Yep. I apologize. I did not get that piece up this year. Just had so much to kind of get up and get done those last couple weeks of spring training, but I tweeted that out a couple days ago.
I imagine it feels 16th. A little dirty too. Just you're trying to guess what these teams.
It's not.
It's not
enjoyable for sure. I mean, you also have to fact like when you're just trying to guess when these guys are going to be up. Like, it's not like every year these teams just all call their guys up on that date. Like they usually
not be obvious.
They usually do it like within like 10 days or so of that date, but it's probably not going to be everyone gets the call on that day. So if you're stashing Kelenic or you're stashing Kirilloff or you're stashing Gilbert and it's like April 22nd and they haven't gotten the call yet, like you shouldn't panic. It's still probably happening before the end of April.
Yeah, I think didn't Chris Bryant get the call on the very first day and it was just super obvious? And then ever since then they've kind of staggered it so that Vlad Jr. was a couple days later, and I mean it is super obvious, but they try to make it a little less obvious by pushing it back a couple days. You mentioned Kirilloff. Do you think that arrival is still coming around that date?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they are not playing high quality. When you have Jake Cave and Kyle Garlick and Brent Rooker as the guys that are sort of getting those opportunities. He's such a massive upgrade over all those guys. I do think they want to play Luis Arraez every day against righties at the very least, and definitely some against lefties. But Josh Donaldson is on the IL right now, so I mean, I guess there's a chance Donaldson could get back before Kirilloff comes up, and then you've kind of got a few too many guys. But I just, I'll take the under on any sort of games played bet on Josh Donaldson. So I think it'll work out. I mean, somebody else could get hurt too by then. So Kirilloff didn't have a great spring, but he's still an awesome hitting prospect, and I would be pretty surprised if we didn't see him before May.
Yeah, man, I'm with you. Everybody, all these. I was just thinking about Byron Buxton and what a crazy start he's off to. But yeah, I think aside from like him and Arraez, and of course Nelson Cruz. I I don't know. I think they could maybe use a little bit of a spark from a guy like Kirilov. Just seeing that team a few times already this season. But I was thinking about Buxton, and yeah, everybody's a big proponent of daily moves leagues. Until the guy's out of a lineup, you take him out, and then he comes into a game and hits a homer.
Dude,
I saw people complaining about that.
You're preaching. I have him in. I'm in 3 daily moves leagues, and I have Buxton in 2 of the 3. And of course, I had him on the bench for that.
Oh man!
I mean, what are you gonna do?
I know.
You know.
That's why everybody, I'm not a big daily moves league guy. And so, I mean, I guess Buxton would have been a tough call in a weekly or even half week NFBC, but, everybody I just saw on Twitter, oh man, like he comes off the bench.
The funny thing is I had him going in all my weekly leagues.
Yeah.
So I figured he was going to play. I figured he was going to play enough in this first half week to make it worthwhile. But when you get that note on like a Tuesday or whatever, the guy's out of the lineup and you're in the daily moves league, it's like, well, all right, who am I going to start over him? He's out of the lineup. So that's just so funny that I got that home run in my weekly leagues, but not my daily.
It is funny how that works out because it didn't seem that serious, right? It was like just some non-COVID illness or stomach bug or something. So
yeah,
you would start him in a weekly league.
It might have even been just like I guess they might have thrown him on the IL if it had been a reaction to the vaccine. But yeah, I just assumed he was going to get like 2 to 3 games this week, so plugged him into those weekly spots. And but yeah, I mean he's such a freak, man. It's I think it would be really fascinating, like if we could just in an alternate universe, if Byron Buxton had just been like an Iron Man and had just never really dealt with any sort of injuries. I mean, we might be talking about this guy as one of the 5 best players in baseball, and it's kind of
MVP multiple times over.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I'm pretty excited watching him, although I don't have him in a single league, so maybe that was kind of why I was, happy to see some people leave him on their bench yesterday. But no, I saw him, that the swag too, like when he connected yesterday, the guy's got it. Hopefully he can just stay on the field because that'd be a game changer for Minnesota. You mentioned Kirilov, Kelenic, Logan Gilbert. Anybody else around that April 16th date that you expect to see?
No, when I tweeted that date out, I was getting people asking about like Wander and asking about Bobby Witt.
Yeah.
I don't see it. I think those are like early June guys is kind of where I'd guess. I mean, I'm sure there will be some surprise guy that we just maybe didn't see coming, who maybe isn't going to move the needle quite as much. But yeah, it's really Kelenic, Kirilov, and Gilbert are kind of the big 3 stash candidates right now, just if we're talking about guys that could be up in April. There's definitely formats where it's worth stashing, over a dozen guys, but in terms of the 12 and 15 team redraft leagues, I think those are the 3 names to watch this month.
Yeah, Bobby Witt, I saw he homered at the alt site the other day, and they are down Mondesi, but you'd expect Mondesi to be ready around that, or maybe ready around that April 16th date, and such limited professional experience for Witt. We did decide to hold on in the main event, but you've said, you may have to sit me down and just break it to me that, Clay, we got to cut Bobby Witt. And I'm open to it. I'm not like committed to that stash.
Well, who would you rather cut right now? Bobby Witt or Randy Dobnak?
Oh, probably Witt, frankly. Although,
yeah, I'm proud of you for saying that. I'm really proud of you for saying that. I think that's right.
I just think Dobnak's going to be getting starts pretty soon. And that save, I don't know if did we capitalize on that save? I know I got it in a few leagues. It was actually a costly.
No, we didn't. I mean, so that's another question, right? Like, do you even want that save? Like, would you want that ERA hit for that save?
Well, I got it in labor, and in a league that deep, I'll take the save.
Yeah.
And plus, Dobnak, I can't funnel out of my lineup anyway in that league.
So I can't help myself here, Clay. Brandon Woodruff is through 6 no-hit innings with 8 Ks.
Wow.
And that's not surprising, but I want you to guess how many pitches he's thrown to get through those 6 innings with 8 Ks.
Oh, man. Now I'm going to have to turn this game on. Let's say 56.
You nailed it.
Seriously? That's weird. I'm actually turning on the YouTube TV app right now. I didn't know that. I swear to God, but that's crazy. I was going to guess 48, go really low. But that's still insane. 56.
Yeah. No walks, no hits, 8 Ks, 56 pitches through 6.
Well, I bow down to you, James. You took the correct side, it looks like, especially after Max gave
no,
solo homer.
That's not even close to settled yet, because that's the whole thing with the Yordan Alvarez stuff too, is if you were fading a pitcher or even Corbin Burns, if you're fading a pitcher or a hitter over a reason that has to do with their durability or just workload or whatever, there's no such thing. You're not right a week into the season just because they're playing well, because the people that didn't take them, it's not like they didn't know that the player was really good. They were betting against the workload or betting against the durability. I'm definitely by no means claiming victory on the Woodruff thing. I mean, when the guy's got a perfect game going, I figured I had to mention that.
Oh, no, I'm glad you did, because I had him too low just generally in my rankings. I admit that. I hope this is on Fox Sports Wisconsin.
Dude,
is that what you're watching on?
YouTube TV is the worst, and they do not carry. Actually, I don't know who to blame out of the channel or the provider, but it is not available on YouTube TV.
I was trying to find a Brewers game on here the other day, and I couldn't. And that's horrible, because now when the Reds go to so where are you watching it? Or just watching on?
Well, I'm watching it on the app. I'm watching it on Fox Sports app.
Fox Sports app. Okay, I'll have to probably get that, because when the Reds come to town, I always turn on Fox Sports Ohio or Fox Sports Wisconsin, but it seems like I can't do that.
Well,
on YouTube TV anyway.
You should just go and watch it with Kevin and I somewhere. Yeah,
man, I would be down. Especially, I don't know when the Reds are in town first, but we should definitely plan on that. So James, as we wrap things up and head into the new hip hop portion of the show, anything else you want to mention prospect related?
No, let's do the walk up tracks.
I love this, and maybe our buddy Andrew Redding can start the Spotify playlist. If not, I could jump in, but I think this playlist is going to be pretty nasty. Again, walk up tracks. We like to put ourselves in the shoes of general managers. If we were putting ourselves in the shoes of players, what would our walk up track be? I'll let you go first, James. New segment. Who are you going to christen the playlist with to start?
Well, I had to go with a DMX track.
Oh, nice.
Really hoping for some good news on that front. Doesn't seem like the greatest situation for him, but DMX was a big part of my middle school childhood days, and I'm going to go with Keep Your Shit the Hardest off of Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood. I think that one really gets you pumped up, and is a nice kind of, I think that if you're a masher and you come to the plate and you're coming out to keep your shit the hardest by DMX, I think that's going to intimidate the pitcher to some extent, and you're probably gonna hit the ball pretty hard with that track. So I'm coming up to that one.
Yeah, intimidate the pitcher to a large extent, I'd imagine. And that's a class move, James, because we're all thinking of DMX, and Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood, like that was an iconic cover and an iconic album. And those first two DMX solo albums, my brother was all about it, and I was all about it in turn because, your big bro loves it, and he was bumping it all the time.
I mean, that was a kind of unprecedented, because I think he released both of those. So he released It's Dark and Hell is Hot, I want to say in early 98. And then he released Flesh of My Flesh, Blood of My Blood in late 98. So he had like 2 number 1 albums in the same year, which I think maybe...
Oh, he was the biggest thing in hip-hop for a while.
Yeah, I think the only other rapper that's maybe done that is I think Tupac maybe did that after he died. I think Machiavelli and Are You Still Down might have been the same year. But I mean, that a legendary, like, 98 was DMX's year through and through.
Yeah, 98 was a legendary year, and DMX owned it on the hip-hop scene. My track may actually be from that same year. Let me look it up. Because this is a song that I actually proposed. I added AG, Amir Garrett, on Twitter and said this should be his walk-up song or his entrance theme. If he were indeed the closer, and that's Wu-Tang's Triumph. Now, I've mentioned this a lot. It was from 97. I just love this song, and that iconic first verse from Inspector Deck in the video where he's like hanging on the side of that skyscraper and abomatomically Socrates' philosophies and hypotheses. It's just iconic, and the beat, even if it's just the beat, even if they don't want to have the edited version blaring over the loudspeakers, you can just play the beat, and that alone is just iconic. So Wu-Tang Clan Triumph, and I will again say that Amir Garrett should use that as his closer entrance theme.
That'd be really awesome if you actually impacted which song he was gonna use there.
Well, he didn't throw a like my way, so I don't know.
Oh man, brutal. He must not have seen it. I'm sure he gets tweeted at all day, every day.
Yeah, I'm sure he just didn't see it. That's totally it. I think these are 2 good ones. I may have put Triumph on a past playlist, but you can never really have enough Wu-Tang Triumph. That in the late 90s was just so legendary for hip hop, man. And I gotta say, James, I'm fully on Capadonna now. I have slandered Capadonna too many times. Capadonna's legit, and he's got his own unique flow, and I'll never talk bad about Capadonna again. And I do owe Method Man an apology for crapping on his Drop the Mic show and calling him a sellout. I would sell out too.
I also want to apologize to I never trashed Method Man like you for that, but I owe Kappa an apology. I think I still not my favorite Wu-Tang member, but
he's got some classic verses, man. He's got some good ones.
And after watching Of Mics and Men, he seemed like one of the chiller guys in the crew, so I definitely want to apologize for slandering him when I was younger and not as informed and not as wise.
Yeah, I really like guys with unique styles, and he's got a very unique one, and he was great. Of Mics and Men is just a must watch if you haven't gotten around to it yet. But good stuff. Hopefully we can get this playlist going soon. Anything else, James, that you want to say before we sign off today?
Nah, man, I didn't even think we had enough to cover like a half hour, and we're going to be going about an hour long here. So good stuff.
Yeah, man. Thanks for all the insight. Good luck the rest of the first full week of fantasy baseball, and we'll be back next week on the RotoWire Prospect Podcast.